Dear friend, twice now in just about 3 weeks' time, am I given the opportunity to, I'm going to say it again, pop one of my automotive cherries in my now long, not really distinguished, but long career in the auto business. Yes, this is my first ever encounter and drive of a VinFast product. You will have to forgive many things in this video as opposed to the usual buffoonery that takes place when you watch these videos. If you do, thank you so very much. So then you're used to some kind of, lesser than, whatever, dog and pony show, right? But this time it's even worse because I got this for less than a couple of hours and I'm doing it in the shade because just over there, you can kind of see the sun. It's about 42 degrees Celsius. So I have to be in the shade, otherwise this video will never happen. Back to the case at hand. This is a 2025 VinFast VF8 Plus. So this is the well-equipped model. In fact, because it's the dealership's demo who has been very, very kind to loan me the vehicle, that's why I have to return it very quickly. But obviously what they would have on the fleet is something that's well-equipped. I will do the usual walk around. It's going to be very quick. I don't have that many details on this very specific model because time is very, very short and this kind of happened off the cuff. So I really want to thank VinFast for enabling me to at least test drive one of their products. But what I want to bring up is that VinFast has had something of a rocky start in North America. Let's just say globally, but focus definitely on North America. I won't go over any of the details because maybe some issues were relevant back then, but now here we are midway through 2025. And the latest bit of news that has come out of VinFast is that in Canada, at the very least, they've shut down 5 of their 10 stores, be it boutique style or actual showroom stores. And while the sales would perhaps explain why VinFast has had to do that, what I'm wanting to discover is if the product or the image or impressions that consumers have of the VinFast product, not the company, just the product, is warranted where, well, are they really a suitable alternative to the Kias and the Fords and the GMs that are really, and the Tesla, fine, that are really leading the slower than expected evolution and transition towards electrified vehicles, not to say fully electric vehicles. Anyhow, I'll end the intro on that. And so in the following video, we're going to do a few laps of this VF8, and then we're going to take it for a drive. So I hope shouldn't be too long this time. Shouldn't be. Anyhow, please hang in there. Okay, so again, I apologize for the shadow and the shade and all that, but the sun is just absolute murder. Sunset orange, kind of fitting, I guess, as far as the color. I'm going to do this quick. Styling wise, it's actually not that bad, but parked beside the VF9 or especially the VF6 and VF7, the VF8 definitely looks like the oldest model. It's still fairly attractive. I mean, the real big difference is in the front fascia where the headlights and the marker lights are concerned, but overall, still relatively attractive. I think I know what happens. Everyone who asks me about the SUV is always very much turned off. I think it's the preconceived notions that, because it's Vietnamese, that it might not be as good as it could be, or I don't know. We're able to convince ourselves of all kinds of things. But look, all in all, fairly attractive. So Canada pricing, I'm going to focus only on Canada. $53,600 for the base Eco. By the way, if you live in Quebec, Ontario, or BC, you can buy one. If you live elsewhere in Canada, too bad, so sad. So standard, you get a dual motor, 19-inch wheels, a 15.6-inch touchscreen display, which is the heart of the interior infotainment and all other interactions with this vehicle. You get vegan leather, heads-up display. So the level of equipment is very reasonable for $53,600. As you might have guessed, this is the Plus with a number of options. So the Plus has these 20-inch wheels, has a power liftgate, a power steering wheel column, cooled front and rear seats. Hopefully I'll remember to show that to you, but they're controlled by the front, which is kind of interesting. It's got premium vegan leather, And it starts at 59.2. So my tester has the Sunset Orange, which is an option. It's got the Power Boost, or it's got a little bit extra power than the regular basic dual motor setup. I'll tell you more about that once we hit the road. And it's got a cotton beige premium vegan leather interior for about $63,500. That's actually a decent amount of vehicle for the price. So there's your hatch button. So according to the specs that I could find, this is 376 liters. The more I look at it, the more I kind of believe it. There is some storage under here, but I wouldn't count that. The seat back, it actually reclines, which is a nice touch. It's a decent size 376. Again, the more I look at it, this is like the 5th time I look at it, and I'm starting to believe that 376 is not bad. For the category and the size, not exactly the best. But what is quite impressive is that, look, the overall wheelbase is almost 3 meters across, which is very common for vehicles, EVs anyway. So the rear seat is really very, very spacious. I mean, obviously I don't have the kid seats, but there's plenty of room for 3, mid-normal size adults across. Ingress and egress is actually fairly easy. It's got a fairly large cutout at the bottom. Same thing with the roof. It works out quite well. I'll give them that. Now, there's a slight disparity. I don't want to judge it. I'm just going to review it. But like the materials here on top of the door, they're actually quite nice. They're fairly plush. You can pinch it. You get the impression that some effort went into it. But then the door handle itself, this is not normal, or it shouldn't be at the very least. But otherwise, everything else is very, very acceptable. I mean, this is just a slight detail. The seats themselves so far, I haven't done that much driving. I'm going to do a lot more very soon, but you see, this is why you never get the cotton or the light beige or white interiors, because they just get dirty. So I think it's a 10-way powered driver's seat. All right, so as we get in, it's already running, but all you have to do is press the brake pedal. It recognizes you, and it is ready to go. This is actually one of my favorite features. When I first saw the shifter buttons, I thought, well, they're just trying to, for a visual impact or something like that. But in fact, compared to a rotary knob in some Fords and other models, I actually kind of like this. I really, really kind of do. So here you have the 15.6 touchscreen display. Fasten belts. We're not going anywhere right now. This is the button I wanted to show you. So this is the seat control. So here's your rear cooled seats, your heated seat button. It's all here. You can't access these functions from the rear. As far as I can tell, you can't. There's your heated steering wheel. There's your sunshade. So this is for the power telescoping steering wheel. So you select, see, it tells you that you have to use the buttons right here in order to make the steering column move. I think maybe that's okay, because you won't do that all the time, but I can't say that it's a good idea, because in the Expedition I thought it was a complete disaster because the layout is very similar. Same thing with the mirrors. Now here, drive modes. You go normal, sport, creep mode. I do like that. So you have essentially one pedal drive on or off, and 4 levels of regen braking. The only issue is you have to go right into it every time via the drive mode button. Yeah, see that? That's just outside in the shade surrounding the vehicle right now. Anyhow, storage is not too bad. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so somebody was using the car and didn't clean it up, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. Door bins are a good size. Again, the dashboard, see, the upper portion looks convincingly good, absolutely to the touch. But when you come down here, that doesn't necessarily fly. However, if you consider $53,000, or in this case $63,000, this is what you get. I mean, an EV with this kind of, tech and displays and all that, it's not an insane amount. So visibility is actually not that bad, because you do have a little bit of an opening right there. Steering wheel controls are actually quite good. I mean, steering wheel, the grip, not the controls, just the grip. I really have nothing else to say as far as that's concerned, so let's drive off. So, driving the VF8 is interesting, in a sense where on the very top layer of the driving experience, I got initially the impression that I was driving something that was actually quite sporty, very stout, right? as Gold member, no tight, as Gold member would say. And on the highway, it seemed to be relatively true until I got, a series of irregular surface cracks and whatever, very typical in the greater Montreal area. And suddenly I was, face to face with something that was very unpleasant. And now I've just left a nice little quiet road that I love to drive on. It's got some ups and downs and some twists, and speed limit is between 50 and 60, so nothing insane. And on a few stretches of slightly undulating surfaces, it was confirmed to me that the dampers have an initial level of non-forgiveness. But as soon as that threshold is passed, I believe the combination between the dampers and the springs, it feels as though they give up, because then the VF8 begins to float. Not impossibly, unbearably so, but in a way that it's not something, like my EV9 will float, but it will settle. This took a little bit longer to settle than I thought it should. It's a multi-link setup in the rear and McPherson struts up front. I think that's just a matter of tuning. It's not a platform/chassis thing. It's just really in the dampers, where potentially VinFast engineers were going for something more comfortable to please the Americans, but they may have gone a little bit too far, where it's like very little give and far too much give. Otherwise, as standard, as I mentioned, the dual motor setup, so it's 349 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, 87.7 kilowatt hour battery. So range is, as you can see on the side of this VF8, is 412 kilometers. The only thing not to fall victim to is that it's the range not for this version, but for the Eco version. Because when you step up to the Plus and you select the extra power, as this one has, so now power goes up to 402 horsepower and 457 pound-feet of torque, meaning the VF8 is actually quite quick on the highway. Passing maneuvers, it really has that initial punch and then it tapers off, which is not unusual for an EV, but this one is fairly noticeable. Now, I just stepped out of a Sierra EV Denali and I was driving the EV9 over the weekend, so I'm in it right now. So I was very impressed with that. The thing is that I couldn't nail down the estimated range. I saw 378 and 391 for the same power output. Anyhow, that would be, I think, one of the issues, as I was saying, the perception, the visuals, the brand, and all of that. And range is just, even at say 59,000 before you take the power boost, so you're looking at like $61,000 for the extra power. Let's just say 385 kilometer range in ideal conditions. Well, that is not acceptable, not in 2025, when most automakers are pushing 475 into the 500s and beyond. And whether it's a Ford or a Hyundai or a Kia or a Chevy, whatnot, this is trailing way behind. I was unable to find quickly charging speeds. However, a 10 to 70% charge on this on a fast charger, 31 minutes, which is kind of misleading, because most automakers will rate a 10 to 80 or a 20 to 80. This is a 10 to 70. I don't know. It's a game, right? You can make the numbers say whatever it is you want them to say. Now, as I'm in traffic, I'm actually in, I went down into medium regen braking mode. And for most cases, even the city, the high seems aggressive at times and not so aggressive. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, but with the creep off, I do love the fact that it won't move. Like I was saying, the one pedal drive. I've done some eco, but not so much given the limited amount of time I have driving this vehicle. I'm about to get back onto the highway, so we'll have said goodbye by then, and I'm going to go into sport and see if it's really a pushy thing. Otherwise, the initial acceleration Otherwise, steering is fine. It seems actually heavy, and this is just in normal. And in sport, well, suddenly, yeah. Okay, so in sport, wow, throttle response. Okay, so hi, I'm still here. Throttle response is almost aggressive. Yeah, very aggressive, but I like it. I suppose you get used to it when you're ready for it. I wasn't. Steering, as I was saying, is very heavy. Obviously, artificially so, maybe a notch too much. I'm not too sure. But brake pedal feel overall is quite nice. I mean, to summarize, and that's where it kind of, wow, where it kind of gets a little bit, well, tough to swallow. The pricing, the new pricing, the current pricing, not the initial pricing, is very reasonable and, for all intents and purposes, attainable given the large screen, the dual motors, a decent sized battery for the Eco model with 412 kilometers. Though even that, it's not great, but it's not bad anyhow. But I mean, in the segment, the Mustang Mach-E, wow, it's really like a switch when you're in sport. I'm gonna go back to normal. Yeah, the Mach-E, the Ioniq 5, ID4, forget about it. The Aria, I'm trying to think, even the Prologue might be a little bit more interesting than this. At least I like it better than the ZDX, so there's that. It's a tough sale, I think, unless you want something novel. This has a number of very interesting, cool colors that you'll definitely not get on the Prologue. But I don't know if you, because we're moving at the same time, that the initial stiffness is followed immediately by like a squatty, floating movement. Anyhow, I've gone on way too long, but the conclusion is that it's better than I thought, but I don't think it's quite yet good enough to compete with the mainstream Ioniq 5s, Mach-E's, and so on and so forth.